Thanks very much. Thanks for having us. Fernando de la Mata is here with me to participate in this panel. Idoia Mateo, Gorka Díaz, and Iván Sánchez. They are the CISO of BBVA, CaixaBank, Sanitas, and Banco Santander. First of all, I'd like to thank INCIBE and INCIBE for this opportunity to represent our sector and give us our opinion regarding the changes about resilience. The resilience is the capacity that companies have to resist incidents or attacks while keeping up the service. In that regard, INCIBE published a guide for fundamental values on cybersecurity that is based on the preventive capacity, how we're going to prevent incidents, then resistance, how our systems are going to resist to that incident, then third place is recovery, and then the evolutionary part, how we are going to learn from our mistakes. So I'd like to ask you, what do you think about these four factors that we need to take into account in terms of cyber resilience? Which one is more important, or which one is harder to achieve in your organization? Fernando, please. Yes, thanks very much for the invitation. Yes, apart from those four pillars, I'd like to stress the third one. The focus should be to be able to recover the business as soon as possible. And in our plans, we have always added an extra point about the capacity of recovery. So the offices keep on working, and also the online channel is working as well. Those two are the two most important points for us. Yes, thanks very much to the organization for inviting us. Yes, we are talking about anticipation, etc. In general terms, we tend to pay more attention to the protection, and sometimes excessively. In the rest of areas, to respond and to recover are very important areas. If we think about it, there are always vulnerabilities in the world of protection. It is very difficult to have all doors closed. So, we have to make our best effort. But closing that 15 or 20% of doors closed is making a great effort. When an attacker enters our infrastructure, is playing in our territory. So it's the best place, the best time for us to identify him, because he normally makes mistakes. He doesn't know where is he's playing. He's the visitor, and we are playing home. So yes, resistance, response, and of course recovery. Idoia, thank you. Thank you, Anise, for inviting us. It's a pleasure to be here face to face. Eventually, I, as part of Santander, believe that these capacities protect, resist, respond, recover, etc., should all work as one. At Santander, we have changed in the last 4 years. We have tried to decompartmentalize the company and work together as one we need to detect. If we don't detect, we're dead. That's why our intelligence people are always looking what's outside, because sometimes you can be attacked and you don't even know it. So the most important thing for me is to anticipate, to be able to know what is happening in Spain and abroad, what is happening with our partners, with our consulting firms. And all those need to be lessons learned that we can deploy in order to protect us. And that needs to be an ongoing circle, otherwise we don't make progress. Yes, thanks very much to the organization. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to elaborate on that. Yeah. Well, so where should we make an extra effort? At Sanitas and in insurance company, we have grown in maturity. So we need to devote balanced resources. But in the past, we were more focused on protection. Yeah, that's about 6 years ago. We defined some KPIs in terms of maturity, and as we went along and we were increasing our maturity, we moved on to the next level. And that happened because the management questions also changed. They asked, can this happen to us? And the obvious answer is yes, of course, we are all exposed. So how can we make it so that it doesn't happen? So we need to think about what we are going to do when it happens. So that is your cue to move on to the next level. So in those cases, we need to establish who is going to lead and who is going to do what. And that was a very fruitful conversation with the board. At the end, there are many cross-sectional activities that need to be addressed as well. Personnel management, third-party management, communication management. So the balance goes hand in hand with the level of maturity of the company. Yeah. Yes, I'd like to elaborate on that as well. This is a circle that depends on the maturity level of the organization. Sometimes it is more important to put the focus on the first pillar, sometimes on the second, etc. But we all agree on that. But we are also talking about how things and the pandemic have changed us. So how do you see these new trends, these new cases, the attack vectors, and new types of attacks? Do you think this has helped us to accelerate some things? And then, second part of the question is that many of us work in different geographical areas, such as Latin America, United States, etc. How do you see the level of maturity of the different geographical areas? Yes, representing the health sector, adapting to the unknown is very important. and especially in the pandemic, in the worst moments of the pandemic, we needed to make an effort moving to face-to-face patient communication to an online communication, and not only in the company Sanitas. The health sector did very well, I think. I think our response to the pandemic was good. We changed the way of working, we moved to the online environment without compromising the security. And there's something that I talk about with other colleagues. So I think we have worked very well in that regard. And in terms of the international areas, we are in Latin America as well. Well, I think we need to feel proud comparing ourselves to other sectors. For instance, there are some sectors and hospitals in some other countries where they did not do things as well as us. They compromise security. I think we're doing pretty well. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but I think we compare well to others. I think in the finance sector, we might be more mature compared to the rest. The pandemic and all the things we have suffered has influenced us in a positive way. In the case of Santander, we already managed the VPNs, and that has helped us to work in a more secure way. We deployed applications for the 40 countries of the group in a secure way. So the situation was a facilitator. I think that was very important. In terms of countries and different levels of maturity, I think it is very important that in global organizations, the work needs to be global. The cloud world and in the finance sector, sometimes we needed to educate the regulator in terms of the cloud. It has helped us because in such a complex world as ours, and in branches such as in Brazil or in other countries, we are able to apply the same level of security in Brazil and in other smaller countries. It is cloud-based. The lessons learned are applied to everyone, and that increases the level of maturity of the organization. Otherwise, we're as strong as the weakest link in the chain. And one of our biggest concerns, and that is shared with other large companies, is third parties. There are services. Everyone has externalized services, even if they are non-critical services. We have ransomware incidents every day on the press and the media. So this is going to be the main problem in the future. But I think Spain has a good level of cybersecurity. Yes, and about that, yes, and learning from experience in the finance sector, what we see, and knock on wood, is that we are not the focus of the target of cyber criminals. they are attacking our supply chains and our third parties. So we wonder up to what point are we able to control the resilience of a third party. So controlling the resilience of Google cannot be compared to comparing the resilience of other countries such as Uruguay or smaller countries. So there is a lot of disparity. So how are we going to be able to make sure that we verify and for instance, the cases of banks and back office. We have a back office with 3,000 or 4,000 people working for us. Is there a service? Is it a company? Yeah, I would like you to share with everyone your experience with the regulator in the United States. So the third party of my third party, that notion, I think that is very interesting. Yeah, while I was in the States as a CISO of the bank, the SolarWinds incident was did not have much repercussion here in Spain, but in the United States it did. So when you once you have contained the incident and you are managing the attack, then the plan goes on, and then the National Agency of Security, and they tell you have to check all the software chain of the company. So that's the paradigm of the future. The regulatory agencies, such as EVA or FBA, so we should starting to have visibility on components, such as the software that is installed on our teams, and I think that is the trend. Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, as a conclusion, the biggest change in the pandemic is in the risk analysis. We have changed priorities. Some priorities that were not that high up on the list went to the top. For instance, the VPN security in the past were important, but now are critical. You're mentioning third-party security as well. What do we do if overnight a third party stops providing service? So, and we need to be able to explain that to the top management as well. We have improved our risk analysis, and they are now updated. And so that's that's how the market is doing right now. So what do we do if the group of cybersecurity experts are all in the same room? They get sick all at the same time. What do we do? So that is something that needs to be taken into account. So risk analysis has been transformed. And also our way to communicate with the top management. Now funding has been released in order to mitigate threats. So we have accelerated our cybersecurity skills. Rubén? Yeah, Idoia has raised the subject of third parties, and you said that maybe finance is not the target anymore. So We can apply a lot of measures here in Spain, but if your company in Puerto Rico does not apply those measures, the result is the same. We are in the retail sector. We have truck drivers, we have storage places, and we need a supply chain that works to the detail, because otherwise there are no supplies on the stores. And then there's another subject. You say that the banking sector is not being attacked. Well, it's easier to attack a third-party company, maybe an SME or a smaller company that do not have cybersecurity department. So when the Social Security Treasury went down, we were affected because we could not hire people. So those things affect your day-to-day business as well. So this is a serious problem as well. Yeah, it's a level of isn't a question of maturity. We were a few years ago, the banking sector was the main target. We reacted, and now the target has moved to other sectors. Yes, but if you take a look at the way the last few incidents have evolved, they are not very sophisticated. Well, normally it is in our case it is a server that it is not properly patched. What we see are opportunistic attacks. It's not a phishing email anymore. It's just maybe via an RDP I can connect to a server. So we need to focus on the security of the products that we offer, because sometimes we invest on cybersecurity instead of focusing on the cybersecurity itself or the product that you are offering. Then new technologies, etc. That's all very well, but the foundations are weak, are made of sand. So you have if your foundations are not strong enough, well, your house will collapse. And not only because of the vulnerabilities of those technologies, but because of the tendencies of and vulnerabilities of those products. So the first thing to do is to keep updated, and you take for granted that there is that you installed a checkpoint here, control, and it's going to work. And I let it run in, and it should work. And then when the incident happens, the control does not work anymore. So don't take anything for granted. Keep on testing and make sure that those checks are operative. So we need to go back to the basics.
We work on the security by design, as we call it, which actually involves these three leverages. which are basic. This, together with awareness raising, we need to raise awareness, both our own employees, but the general public also, because we all have suffered attempts of data theft, and we have to take the necessary measures. Yes, I would like to comment on something which I think is interesting, which something that has been promoted by ANISA. This is kind of services for health-related products. We have some health-related customers. We work with medical machines and equipment which are manufactured by 3 or 4 global manufacturers, and we found specifically with some challenges when it comes to implementing certain security measures, and it is good to see how there are measures for product certification across Europe. These products have to comply, and the manufacturers are obliged to have that certification, taking into account data security. So there are some actions in Europe which I think are going in the right direction. And he also commented about the regulatory role, and the regulator, I think, has adapted to a situation where regulation was an additional challenge. But I think some of the regulators are adapted, and in the case of the insurance sector, the General Directorate for Insurance has a degree of maturity which is increasing, and they come with us they go from a very auditing point of view to a more constant work. At the end of the day, regulation should empower us at the security level. Regulation is an objective to attain, and sometimes the moment we are compliant, we don't do any more. But it is quite the reverse. We want companies that continue to work around security and to improve that security. Yes, and I think that you mentioned, which is also part of the trends that we've seen, both regulators and also public security agencies will move to help us as a sector to improve our resilience and our recovery. They will have an increasingly active role, and looking back at past experiences, we saw how some US public agencies were patched by other sorts of agencies. They have reached that level of intervention, as this was seen as a national weakness. We all know what some of the events that we've witnessed in past years came from. So I think that moving from a series of controls and verifying that these controls are complied with, such as a medical checkup, we will see more effective controls, and I think ultimately that's going to help us to stop working with that kind of vision of passing the different regulations and completing surveys and papers, to really generating security and peace of mind for all stakeholders. I think that's an important step ahead, and that's ultimately what we look for in the society we live in. Well, thank you very much to the 4 of you. I think it has been a really interesting roundtable, and we hope that we actually did a bit with our experience and that it can be useful to you. I would like to thank INCIBE once again for their invitation. I will now move on to the next talk. Thank you.